Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and Peter Thiel is making his way as kind of a media darling right now, pointing out the obvious that Google is working with China, and that's dangerous, and that we may need to stop that. But who is Peter Thiel, and why is he being promoted by the establishment all of a sudden? Now, he was on Tucker Carlson, and I've praised Tucker in the past. I thought this was somewhat of a very softball interview. So we're going to show you the Peter Thiel Tucker Carlson interview in this segment. But first, I want to point out that this guy is a Silicon Valley billionaire that's been on my radar for quite some time. In fact, so much so that we featured him in a segment in Shade the Motion Picture regarding the power structure and Bilderberg and how he was one of the people that was on the come up. Okay, so I'm just going to play just a small segment of this right here for everybody to check out, and this will give you a little overview of who Thiel is.
Then we have former Bilderberg attendee Sean Parker. He eventually went on at a young age to get recruited by the CIA for a web crawler program that he built. Somewhat of an entrepreneur, Forbes 400, co-founder of Napster, went on to become first president of Facebook. His newest thing is Spotify, which is an attempt to fix what Napster broke. So this guy's kind of profiteering off of both ends, and when put together with the right forces, with the right people, he has been known to be an agent of disruption.
Now, why did I play Sean Parker there? Did you notice how he was the first president of Facebook? Well, Thiel was a very first, not the very first, but one of the initial investors into Facebook when it went big time. And Parker and Thiel worked together heavily. And remember, at that point, Parker attended Bilderberg. He was an attendee, but now we're going to get into the old guard leaving and the new guard coming.
Why should Pamela Harriman, another certifiable cretin, the late now, dominate the Democratic Party with her husband, Averil Harriman, yet another of these stupid, rich oligarchs, right? The stupid sons and daughters of rich men. The Count d'Avignon, Zbigniew Brzezinski, somewhat better shape, right? Spry, but
dead now.
Also not immortal. Who is going to carry on this oligarchical tradition, and in what form, in the coming years? And here I would look in particular at Peter Thiel, Thiel, actually born in Germany, but now operating primarily in the United States. He is the co-founder of PayPal, became a billionaire through that.
That's Musk next to him.
He is also a member of the Facebook board of directors, meaning that he has a fiduciary responsibility, I think, to some of the people who lost a lot of money on that abortive Facebook IPO. And he has this plan to create extraterritorial offshore colonies. So I can only speculate what that means. Slavery, prostitution, narcotics, certainly no minimum wage, no health plan, no child labor laws, you name it. In other words, the destruction of civilization as we've known it. You can have Hewlett-Packard fire 30,000 people, as they're doing, and you can say the remnants and the scraps can be moved to Thiel's offshore islands. You bring in programmers from India. You can actually use such a place to begin to undercut the salary levels, to drag down the economy in the continental United States even further than it already is.
Now again, that's Webster Tarpley. That's a segment from Shade the Motion Picture, which I did with Shepard Ambellis. Free picture. It's in my my playlist. Go check it out. I don't agree with everything that Webster has to say, obviously, but he does paint that picture. And, you know, again, Thiel is making the rounds right now. We're going to go to the Tucker Carlson piece and kind of break it down. Other things you need to know about Peter Thiel. He is the president's technology advisor. So while you have Eric Schmidt on one end in Bilderberg, you also have Peter Thiel on the other. So Schmidt, very much a Clinton person. Thiel, not so much. But he's still, he's a ruthless businessman. Make no mistake about it. Now, Thiel was a closeted homosexual until Gawker outed him. He resented that so much that Gawker took him down in that manner that he funded the lawsuit of Hulk Hogan's sex tape, won, and then took them over financially. Basically ruined Gawker on behalf of that. And remember we were just talking about Peter Thiel before we get into this and his libertarian ideas. He talks about American exceptionalism is the reason for Americans being exceptionally overweight and exceptionally addicted to opioids. And believe me, the guy's not a dumb guy. He speaks a lot of truth, period. Okay? That is 100%. But you got to understand he's also a cunning, ruthless, bottom line businessman. And when he was talking about offshore stuff, Thiel was funding human testing on a herpes vaccine overseas to avoid U.S. safety regulations. And then the FDA actually launched a criminal investigation into that. That came out last year. Now, on one end, I don't trust the FDA. I do think that, we do need to progress. But at the same time, human experimentation outside of the law, we've seen where that leads to. And unfortunately, our deep state apparatus is just as guilty as the Nazis were, if not more so, because they progressed after the fact, period. That's a reality, okay? I hate it when people say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, that's been admitted, through the Department of Atomic Energy and its subsidiary names afterwards, or subsequential names afterwards, excuse me. So now Thiel talking about this on Tucker Carlson. I really thought Tucker was soft here. I thought Tucker was way soft. Now, we're talking about the Google agenda here. Remember, this guy is still invested in Facebook. And Facebook has come under the gun of scrutiny over privacy through Cambridge Analytica and much more. More so, in fact, than Google, despite them working hand in hand with the same types of technology against one another in competition with ACR and big data and advertising, right? There's Google AdSense, and then there's a whole different marketplace and advertising tool over on Facebook. So they're direct competitors. So while he may tell you some truth here, all right, and by the way, he tries to play it with this, I hate it when people say woke. Ugh. And he uses that terminology, you know why? Because it caught headlines. So let's play this Tucker Carlson
pal. He was one of the very first investors in Facebook. If anyone knows a lot about big tech and its power and its potential dangers, it's Peter Thiel. So it means something when he warns that Google, the world's most powerful company, has become a threat to American national security.
They have, but here's the thing. They're not a threat to national security because they're working with China like he's talking about. They're a threat to national security because they're part of the military media industrial complex. They're part of the technopoly. They work with NASA, and it's not just in space programs. NASA, Goldman Sachs, Jeff Bezos, they're all invested in artificial intelligence through the D-Wave systems and other programs at this point. And they're competitors now in the artificial intelligence sense, and by the way, they're going to talk about China and AI, are IBM and Microsoft. Okay? So it's just completely disingenuous when he says this.
May even have committed treason, he says. While speaking at the National Conservatism Conference in Washington yesterday, Thiel warned that Google may have been infiltrated by Chinese intelligence and ought to be subject to immediate investigation by the FBI and the CIA. We're happy to have Peter Thiel join us tonight. Peter, thanks a lot for coming on.
So, thanks for having me.
And let's stop it there. The FBI and the CIA. You do not think that the CIA knows exactly what's up at Google? You don't think they're already investigating them? You don't think they have a file? You don't think they have workers inside those operations? First of all, the Central Intelligence Agency, through their networks, works through shell corporations and subsidiary corporations. And they plant their people everywhere. So come on, this whole thing is set up on a lie.
What did you mean when you said that?
Well, it was just in the form of a set of questions I asked where, artificial intelligence is something people talk about nonstop in Silicon Valley, but they almost never talk about its dual use. If it's real, if this is a real thing, it obviously can also be used by the military. It'll be weaponized in all sorts of ways, and it's an important national security question.
Now, let's stop it there. He actually asks a really good question, if it's real. if it's real, if AI is real. People have asked that question. How far are these algorithms going to go? What are we really seeing when we see quantum computers? I did a whole thing on Nevin's Law maybe a few weeks back. People should go check it out. But the theories are startling. And Google is one of those proponents of the multiverse. Go Hartmut Nevin. That's where Nevin's Law is. He talks about it, and others. But then you have Microsoft talking about the same thing. So Thiel asking that question, again, he's a smart guy. He's intelligent. He's asking common sense questions. But in a lot of ways, he's an insider, especially with his Bilderberg steering membership and his I'm the president's technology advisor, okay? He's being very, very disingenuous that he doesn't know some of the answers to these questions already.
As to who has it, there's this very peculiar background where Google is working with the Chinese communist government and not with the U.S. military. So the Project Maven decision was a decision not to work with AI with the U.S. military, but they're working with the communist Chinese. And so the question is, from the outside, is just what in the world is going on there?
And look, it's not great that they're working with the Chinese. We already have seen the artificial intelligence algorithms that are providing them with real-time social credit scores, the finding of people, the track tracing and databasing of people, the restrictions of their travel. That's all terrible, okay? All terrible. But to act like we didn't prop up China financially, and we haven't done so through decades, through the Rockefellers, through the Kissingers of the world, through the 80s, through people like Biden, would be disingenuous and a lie.
I sort of suggested a few different possibilities, but I think it's been they've described it as a Manhattan Project for AI. And so if you go around broadcasting that you're building the Manhattan Project for AI, I would think this naturally would draw the attention of foreign intelligence agencies. I think the Chinese are competent enough that the Ministry of State Security is likely to have infiltrated Google, and then I think the Google management has sort of a decision of either letting the software go out the front door or figuring it'll get stolen anyway and go out the back door.
And you know what? He's not necessarily wrong there. Spycraft and espionage is real, and to imagine that somehow there aren't some intelligence inside of Google. But again, they work hand in hand with them. And Eric Schmidt, in that recent interview, talked about Dragonfly and them working with the Chinese on a censored version of Google. We already have a censored version of Google here. It's already here, too. All right? They're trying to restrict and continue to restrict, but this doesn't have to be our only outlet. So let's continue, Mr. Thiel.
When you say you believe that Chinese state security is likely to have infiltrated Google, what does that mean?
Well, if you say you're building a Manhattan Project for AI, don't you think that would attract the interest of foreign intelligence agencies?
Yes.
Yes. This is just hidden in plain sight, and then they are. I think there are sort of all these ways that Chinese nationals are engaged in espionage in the U.S. It's understandable that China is doing that. They see themselves in a very serious competition with the U.S. But we're not particularly on our guard about it. And if you have sort of a series of super futuristic tech projects that you broadcast the whole world, it's at least a suspicion. And then the weird fact that's indisputable is that Google is working with communist China, but not with the U.S. military on its breakthrough.
And again, that's a lie and disingenuous, because all of these quantum programs, in fact, we're going to stop it here. We're going to stop it right here, and we're going to type in Google, NASA, quantum computers. Remember, we just got Space Force, okay? Okay, quantum computing. NASA's Advanced Supercomputing Division. They are working with the military on AI. It's right there. It is right there. So what are you talking about? So Thiel is being very deceptive, and you know what, Tucker? It's right there. Come on, man. You've been doing it for years. These quantum computing programs are about artificial intelligence. Don't you understand that? Give me a break. It's so frustrating when I see things like this.
AI
Why is
technology.
that?
Well, that's the question. I mean, I think one explanation is they figure they have to, because if they don't give it to them through the front door, it'll get stolen through the back door. So first answer is they have to, and then I think of course there's probably a broad base of Google employees that are ideologically super left wing, sort of woke, and
Sort of
think that
woke.
China's better than the U.S. or that the U.S. is worse than China. It's more anti-American than anything.
Always. But this is, by definition, a threat to American national security, as you point out. So if Sundar Pichai was sitting right here, what would you say to him?
Well, I would say answer my three questions. How many foreign intelligence agencies have infiltrated Google? Have the Chinese in particular infiltrated? And why are you working with communist China and not the U.S.?
So let's stop it. You guys can check out the rest there. But once again, he's being very disingenuous, because Google is working with the military through NASA. Okay? There is a reason they're rolling out Space Force. There's a reason this is all happening now. It's because they want an amalgamation of the Chinese social credit system into the United States. This is a global plan. I didn't make Invisible Empire a new world order defined because I didn't believe it. Okay? I made it because I believed that this is indeed the future. You can watch all of my videos for free, all of my documentaries. You go over here to playlists, guys. And in the documentaries playlist, where are you? You got to be there somewhere. There you are right there. Shade, we watched a segment of it. Invisible Empire, it's there. Fabled Enemies, Loose Change Final Cut. They're all there. If you're not subscribed, you liked what you saw, you don't like bullshit left or right opinions, you want to know about the right and the wrong of it, you want a real opinion, you want somebody who's going to listen and look stuff up, I'm your guy. Please subscribe, join the Burmist Brigade, share this on social media, email it to others, put it on your blog. We're at the forefront of covering the Epstein case. Later tonight, we're going to talk about the latest developments of Adnan Khashoggi's relationship with Epstein in the 80s, possibly during the Iran-Contra scandal. You can't make this stuff up, had no idea, and I actually 2 days ago did a video on Khashoggi just because of all the things that seemed similar in this network. So we'll be talking about that and much more. We do Nexium here. We do Google. We do ACR. We do Facebook, Bohemian Grove, Brexit, and so much more. Guys, we hit our goal. It gets taken down tonight. I start a new GoFundMe tomorrow. I can't thank you all enough. You guys totally rock. Thank you all. I'll see you on the flip side.